Welcome back, guys. andinster and Baskin. Fantastic watching you so far. My first question is going to be for andinster specifically. You stepped away from the jungle last season, walked into the middle lane, and now returning to the jungle. I guess the easy question is, which do you prefer? And the harder question is, where do you think you're more effective?
Which do I prefer? I probably prefer jungle. You just have a lot more impact on the game in general, especially in Season 4. Season 5 might be a little bit different, but yeah, I definitely prefer jungle. Which am I more effective? It's hard to say, really. I mean, I think it really just more depends on the team. Like, for this team, I don't think I could replace Baskin or anything like that, but for my old team, I was pretty effective as a mid laner working with Homie. So
I think we can all agree with that statement. And on a more lighthearted note, though, how often does Baskin take your kills?
I'm just here to set him up.
I noticed that full tank Arlong Shen earlier, full tank jungle, not something we're used to seeing out of andinster. You've historically been a super hard carry guy, but throughout the course of the spring split, we've seen you kind of play both sides of the coin. Is it just a composition thing, or do you prefer being tanky versus being a carry?
Honestly, when I first started playing Erlang Shen specifically, I was building them full damage, but it just doesn't work in competitive, and I don't know, setting up mid laner and just getting pressure and getting red invades is definitely just a good play style, and if being tanky makes that happen, then that's what I'm going to do.
Speaking of compositions, and Baskin, I'm mostly looking at you for this one. As a mid laner who's kind of done the best of both worlds in terms of playing mages and hunters, which do you feel is actually better?
I think it really depends on the team's playstyle. If you're playing a faster pace with more pressure, ADC is pretty much better every time. But if you're playing slower, like I think EU tends to play slower than NA, they don't invade as much, then a mage is better because I think mages are better late game and in team fights. But ADCs obviously have more pressure and they're better in like little skirmishes like 2v2s or 3v3s.
So you mentioned North America and Europe there. Right now, the matchup is between eUnited and Black Dragons. If you do have to wind up facing the Latin Americans, how would you prepare for them?
Just the same way we prepare for any team, just like watching back their VODs and just seeing what they pick. I think there's like a lot of similarities between Nocturnes that we just played in Black Dragons, so I think we'll be pretty prepared.
Well, specifically meaning you were saying EU's kind of slower, North America's kind of faster. Does Latin America have an identity like that?
I think they lean more towards the mages and mid. They're more slower. I think the NA playstyle, it might even be specific to us in eUnited. We're definitely two of the most aggressive teams and more pressure-oriented teams. So, yeah.
And I've noticed, Andy, as well, that in that last match that you guys actually just played up against Nocturnes, you spent a lot of time in the duo lane, and we haven't really seen a whole lot of that from too many junglers this LAN. And why do you think that is?
I'm not sure. I mean, I was just trying to gank as much as I could that game. I don't know, I had trouble getting ganks off in our last set versus Dignitas, so I was trying to get as many ganks in as I could this game and just sort of like, I don't know, just maybe like reevaluate how I'm playing a little bit. So that's why I did that.
Yeah, just two more questions, guys. One, a follow-up to that last one you just answered. We found you were doing a lot of the ganking and were kind of behind in experience, but it didn't really seem to matter. As a jungler, does getting your teammates ahead kind of allow the team to win better than if you just farmed?
No, I'm pretty sure in that scenario I should have been playing more efficient and like more, just like a little bit greedier. I think I probably gave up too much pressure by letting myself fall behind, but like I said, I was just sort of trying to like get a feel, I guess. And yeah, I definitely just over-ganked that game, I would say.
Hell, man, it worked with the W. That's all that really matters. And the last question, Baskin, specifically to you, man. I mean, you've been the transcendent player this year. You look different than any other person. What's that experience like? Is that a big part of what you guys do? And just straight up, do you think you're the best player in the world?
No, I don't think that. Like, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I feel like I get that question sometimes. I don't know how to respond because, well, it's like hard to compare regions and roles. And as far as like Season 5, I think mid lane is just really strong in Season 5, and I think that they obviously get the most farm, and it's kind of been a transition where in previous seasons it was maybe ADC carry, it was a carry role in team fights, but now it's definitely mid, I feel like.
Well, it certainly worked out so far. Real quick, you guys go up head-to-head, either eUnited or Black Dragons. Level of confidence going up against either of those?
I think it should be, well, I think we'll 2-0 Black Dragons, and I think versus eUnited will win in probably 2-1.
All right, fantastic. Thanks a lot, andinster and Baskin. We'll catch you guys later. Welcome back to the desk here. It's going to be Tom joined by Taco. That was Baskin and Andy with, well, me and Taco. So we got a chance to talk to the guys from Spacestation. And Andy and Baskin, we rarely get to see them. We always see Jeff and BaRRA, very charismatic. These guys are charismatic as well, but in a different way. Cool, calm, and collected are the jungle mid bond between these two.
I mean, they are actually two peas in a pod, though,
Yeah.
when you break it all down. I think that personality-wise, they definitely tend to get along, and even more so in their play style. I think that these two are just such a strong pairing to have in the mid-jungle aspect, because they just play off of each other so incredibly well. Andy, if he needs to step it up, and he's playing the hyper carry type of jungler, you typically tend to see Baskin opting for more of the utility-based style of mage, whether it be a hunter that's utility-based, or even the, like I just said, the hard mage. I just think that it's great seeing how the two of them can kind of just fill in wherever they think they need to pick it up from.
Yeah, I mean, talking to Andy, he's there to set up. If Bastion's playing the mage, if they're going to play a solar game, we'll see him kind of play setup man. If they want to play a little bit quicker, the hunter and then the aggressive junglers come out. And it's really, it's funny because we watch Space Station play, and it's very easy to just default to Baskin. And, I go back to that Apollo game. I think that was a Baskin-only game, but I think that was the only one-person game. Everything else Space Station has done, Baskin might have been on the marquee, but it's been the team experience, and watching him combine with Andy and the rest of the squad is really important.
Well, one thing's for sure. Hopefully, Venenu isn't going to have to deal with PolarBearMike pulling people into the tower when Ven is on 10 HP, so he doesn't die again. A little bit of fun every now and again at LAN. You can kind of expect that from some of these players. They all just want to have a pretty good time about it. And I think that for eUnited, riding off of the momentum after taking down Black Dragons, most people would have probably assumed that this is the matchup you would expect to see between eUnited and Space Station now. And where things could really get spicy is that these two have been scrim partners for quite some time. And so at the end of the day, you know that you've both been practicing this double hunter composition. And I think that our main reason why this has surfaced so much is because LAN tends to be all about the objective play. And whoever is controlling the objectives or the jungle is almost always going to end up taking the set home. And so I think that's why we started seeing this resurgence of the double hunter compositions.
Able to shred through the objectives and, of course, the tower so easily. Usually we see the ability-based hunters go in the mid lane because they sort of act like mages, but that doesn't even seem to be the case either. Last time around, Rob was in the middle lane in the hands of Baskin, so it doesn't even seem to be a different type of hunter. As long as it's a basic attack character, they're good.
It's really all about looking for some of those late game hunters as well. One thing I have noticed is that in every single one of these double hunter compositions, there has almost always been at least one, if not both, of the hunters that fare incredibly well in the late game. A lot of these attack speed based gods tend to do better in this kind of play style just because of the fact that they're going to be the ones that shred through the objectives the fastest.
The Artemises, the Roms, and Hachiman, I kind of view Hachiman more as that mid-game character, but that banner will enable him to be sort of act like that late-game attack speed guy.
And this is also fun because it's going to be PandaCat and PBM against BaRRaCCuDDa and Jeff. And I think that PandaCat and BaRRa have both had a lot of highlight-worthy moments in this LAN so far. And so it's very exciting because I'm curious how they're going to choose to actually play the laning phase against each other since they're probably both so familiar with the playstyle.
Like you said, I mean, there's no secrets between these teams as they're scrim partners. And it's funny. This is one of the... We usually do single elimination. Here we are in double elimination on the lower bracket with the defending world champions and what a lot of fans are calling one of the, if not the best team in the world. A lot of people are sitting here saying Space Station's the best. A lot of people are sitting here and saying Baskin's the best. Well, we're watching these two in the lower bracket.
I think one thing is for sure between these two teams, and that this probably isn't going to be clean from either side. This is going to get messy, and it's not going to be fun probably for the players involved. And I say that because I'm personally expecting these matches to go on longer.
That was going to be my question. You expecting them to be really 60-minute slugfests?
Maybe not necessarily 60, but I think we can very easily expect some of those 40-minute hovers because of the fact that since both sides, whether or not they choose to go for the double hunter composition, I think it'll be really interesting to see how much of the EU playstyle they try to adopt into their own in order to try and topple the other. Because like we've been talking about, they've been scrim partners for so long. I mean, they don't really have too many secrets. The only real option they could go for is to try and adjust by going with what they in fact lost to.
And looking at that, I mean, both of these teams have lost to that European playstyle. So, like you said, adapting that might be interesting. And we keep seeing this play over and over again. This earlier from when Spacestation played against Nocturnes, and I love it because it's the smallest amount of setup that Baskin needs. A little bit of a knockup from the Arlong Shen, and Baskin's able to land that ultimate.
I mean, 90% of the time, Baskin doesn't even need the setup. Yeah. He's usually just going to be cleanly on point, but I think that today could be a very important set for Baskin, because even during Dignitas and in those matches, the Poseidon gameplay, I mean, we all pointed it out. It's kind of hard not to notice it, because Baskin has looked like a machine the entire way through the season, and then you finally start seeing him miss some abilities, and you're just like, oh my god, he bleeds.
Yeah, definitely a really good thing for Baskin's opponents to see the fact that he's a little bit mortal here. The Poseidon is, do you think that's a pick that we're going to see going forward?
It's been a very popular pick all LAN, in fact, and I think that some, including myself, are a bit surprised at how popular Poseidon has been as of late. I think that the Cripple is very highly valued, and the primary reason why we've been seeing so much of the Poseidon. Kraken, not necessarily as much. Sure, he's awesome for, or the Kraken is useful for objective secure if you manage to get that inner circle caught around it. The outer rings maybe not so much, but still a strong deterrence factor even when the enemy team is trying to go for objective play. And I think having that jungle AoE lockout factor is also just another one of the main reasons why Post is probably still going to have a chance to surface here.
Yeah, I mean, that center spot has actually gotten bigger, so it's easier to nail the damage. But, you know, I think it's easy to look at Poseidon and say, Kraken man, burst damage guy. But aggro has actually really changed my mind and shown me that Poseidon is actually a really big control mage. The way that he's able to control those areas and the small pathways in the jungle is really where he excels. Nuwa was very popular earlier on in the split because she controls those areas as well. So we'll see if Poseidon will be the pick for Space Station. Space Station Gaming versus eUnited. Picks and bans coming through. The black and yellow will have the first pick and the first ban overall. I expect to see no Terra today. I think she's going to be banned out every single game. Other than that, I'm not really sure, but I definitely know I don't want to see either of these teams play Terra.
Terra, Athena, Achilles, Artemis even.
First ban.
Still going to be one of the primary choices to take away. And I think that initial threat of early picking Artemis isn't necessarily a concern here, because Artemis now has that potential, even with Odin being a selection still, because no one's going to ban Odin for your top two bans. It's just very complicated in trying to justify that sort of a ban when there's so many other top tier picks right now. But Artemis especially has really risen to the top in competitive play. And it's just because of how strong she can feel in a lot of those jungle aspects, because the corridors are just so narrow. Tusky all over the place, that Caledonian board just flying in every which direction, and you can't always keep track of it during the calamity of a team fight.
And you mentioned the small corridors, the traps. I mean, it used to be kind of, if you got hit by the Artemis trap and it wasn't off of a combo, kind of just you're bad. Now there are some spots where you kind of accidentally do walk into those because there's not enough wiggle room to really walk past.
Athena. I think Athena or Kakolin are probably going to be two of the picks that we see them circling around. There's also Serqet. I mean, there's a lot of strong choices, but this does mean that eUnited could potentially take the Athena and the Kakolin for themselves, and those are two gods that I think they've tended to be pulled towards.
I think Space Station Gaming and eUnited have interesting sort of dynamic going on where Scream is going to look to be the hard carry a little bit more often than Andy. We spoke to them, and it's kind of 50-50 depending on where the composition goes. Scream, on the other hand, is that more traditional Season 5 jungler where he's looking to get the ganks and get the kills. Robin, Serqet, these early characters that do work are what he wants to play. eUnited is going to go with the Athena right away, paired up with the Poseidon that we were talking about earlier. So it won't be in the hands of Baskin. It'll be across the way, eUnited.
Still, some wiggle room here for Spacestation. They could look to prioritize the damage components of their draft. When you have Serqet, that immediately confirms like those thoughts of maybe they're going to look for the dive composition. Serqet can go a couple of different directions here. I think dive is a very clear and obvious one. I mean, that's probably the more prevalent one that we tend to see. And after that, I think you're going to be looking towards maybe just a chaotic sort of composition from Spacestation, and one in which they're going to prioritize either picks or just separating the like of eUnited. I mean, with Athena and Poseidon, clearly eUnited want to try and stay grouped on top of each other because the more centralized you are around that Poseidon and Athena, typically the better your team fights are going to go.
I also like how well Athena and Poseidon do at shutting down what Serqet does, right? The cripple and the taunt is a really big deal. Hachiman and the Hercules. I like this pick a lot. That does leave the Cucullin open for eUnited, but Aquarius, I said this on the cast earlier when we were on the mic. Hercules is Aquarius's sort of go-to pick for when he's going to be big man carry potential, and we've been seeing Spacestation go this route time and time again. A lot more trust is being put into Aquarius to be that player, and I'm almost always happy with the results.
Well, we just saw Benji play Artio legit in the previous set, so there's that possibility as well, because Artio is a great god to have with the cripple field limiting the mobility of Serqet, and on top of that you could prevent some driving strikes that might introduce more control towards your backline.
I'd love that actually.
And Hercules feels a lot like a pick where Spacestation just want to focus almost entirely around keeping eUnited locked off of certain areas. They want to make sure that they can limit eUnited's actual pathways.
I like the Jing selection here. I'm going to be able to get away from the Hercules flip, right? It's a nice look. Spacestation Gaming, I think, should definitely ban Cucullin here. eUnited lacking a solo lane, unless we do see Benji on the Athena. But I think Cucullin is a strong pick. Benji wants to play anything with pressure, I think, especially going up against that Herc.
I almost feel as though Spacestation might be prompted to ban a Geb here, even. Maybe hoping that eUnited are leaning more towards this Athena being in the solo lane, but there is a lot of ambiguity in eUnited's draft as is. I mean, of course, you know where Poseidon and Jing way here going, but understanding that they aren't choosing to run that double hunter composition that we've become so accustomed to seeing out of these North American teams. And so I think with this being the case, taking a look at the jungle is still a very smart option.
Absolutely, and that's why we see the Ratatasker ban on the left side. But it's two Guardians from eUnited. They themselves will ban out the Geb, and Sylvanas next to it, and the Raven ban from SSG. So eUnited, on the right side, have the option, and it's going to be looking for a jungler and maybe a solo laner. That's where my mind is at. I really think that Athena is going to go support for PBM.
This could be a double hunter composition where Spacestation opts for the Fafnir for Jeff. I mean, we've seen a decent amount of that as well, and Fafnir with the Coerce is a very ideal situation. Hachiman also would still encourage some of that objective play. The main issue with that, though, would just be Poseidon with the Kraken. Very hard to out-secure a mage burst damage on objectives.
You know what I'd actually like to see? Fafnir Neath mid. I would really like that. I think Neath mid works out well when you have a chase down jungler like Serqet, and I think that the Neath mid can also match the global possibilities from Athena. We saw Zeros do it with Team Dignitas a couple of days ago, and I really, really liked the result. The Latin American teams took note as well. They said that they learned watching Dignitas how to sort of deal with that global pressure, and I asked them, for more detail, and they said that they never really thought about Neath being able to respond. You don't physically have to get there. Everybody goes to Janus and Apollo. If you can assist like a Nuwa or a Neath, I think those might be interesting. We're getting the Fafnir.
Well, there's one part of it, and there's still Rom on the table. There's Apollo left open as well.
Apollo is probably the better choice.
It's going to be Janus.
Okay. Honestly, that's Mage Apollo, right? He can get to wherever he wants to be and steal the kill.
In a way, yes. I think that I personally like this choice a little bit more, though, for Space Station, because I love that they're matching eUnited in the sense that they're not going to try to simply outdo eUnited with the double hunter composition. They're instead just going to revert back to the basics pretty much and some of the more standard gameplay.
What's also interesting is that when you go hunter in the mid lane, what that allows you to do is fight a little bit better because you have the in-hands. Poseidon's one of the mages that can actually go toe-to-toe with the hunter because you have multiple abilities and you have that trident. So picking that hunter would have been, you know, kind of disingenuous.
It almost feels like a bit of a call-out, though, because Baskin taking the Janus into a Poseidon means that he's clearly got no concerns about the Whirlpool Cripple.
Oh, sure.
And that he plans on just maneuvering around it in every single which way. But I like Space Station's draft just a little bit more at the moment because I think it's more well-rounded in terms of damage. I think the eUnited could be struggling a little bit here for damage confirmation until I see this. The Nemesis, I love it.
Nemesis, Athena, Kraken Man, one of the scarier three-point triangles in Smite. You get the guaranteed taunt, the guaranteed weakness exposed, and the guaranteed damage. Who has the guaranteed win?
I don't think either side has a guaranteed win. I think I already put my point across in that this feels like it's going to be a coin flip pretty much. I think that both of these teams, for the most part, got exactly what they wanted. I think Space Station might have the edge, though, because the Janus is going to be able to run away from the Nemesis initiations.
Well, Baskin's back on the mages, two of them in the middle lane. We'll see who takes the game. Let's get right into the action.
Good work there, Tom and Taco. Finch and Aggro going to be here bringing you the call. Space Station versus eUnited. It's pretty big time here. One of these North American juggernauts is about to go home.
And it's crazy to think that they just got Janus 9th pick, Nemesis 10th pick.
Pretty good, isn't it?
We have arrived. This is your LAN meta, ladies and gentlemen. Normally during the online spring split, Nem, Janus are your top pick, top bans, but things like the Cullen and the Sylvanas even, the Athenas, they're starting to become more and more prioritized. The Poseidons, at this meta, it seems to be like those are a little bit more favored, so gods like Janus and Nemesis slip down a little bit.
Well, who do you all think will win? Please vote for us in the Mixer poll. I know there's a lot of Jeff BaRRa love out there, but this set's going to be very, very close. I'm very curious to see if that's reflected in the polls. But eUnited seem to be really prioritizing these Guardians, don't they?
Yes.
The Athena, the Sobek, then they ban away the Geb too. I mean, they really want to try and prioritize these Guardians.
Kind of surprised that with only one hunter, we see Jeff go for the Fafnir. Now, Fafnir does have some ways to get out of Kraken. You can get Whirlpooled Kraken. As long as you have that Draconic Corruption available, you can get out of it. But at the same time, if you transform at the wrong moment, then Poseidon can just lay a Whirlpool underneath you and guarantee a kill basically on that detransformation or whenever you hit the ground off the initial transformation. So it's a very volatile matchup between Fafnir and Poseidon. Usually the one that is the aggressor will end up being at an advantage.
It's actually eUnited who ends up favored here in the polls. We see the results there on the screen. 69% for eUnited, 31% for Space Station. A little bit surprised it wasn't a little bit closer, but eUnited are going to be the favorites. And seeing this draft here on paper, I kind of get why. It seems like they got a lot of picks that they're all very comfortable playing.
And I was interested in seeing where Sobek and Athena were going to go because we've seen Benji play solo Athena a couple times now so far this week, but you're just putting yourself in such a scary position to try and clear as an Athena against a Hercules. You just turn around, driving strike you away, and deal a lot of damage to you. So I kind of like that idea. But check this out. Look at where Aquarius is starting. He's on this left-hand side, but trying to keep all of eUnited off of the red buff. So now he's going to chase them away, teleport back to the right, and this opens the door for the 3-man invade on the enemy red buff. And so eUnited goes to their own purple instead to make sure that doesn't get stolen away.
Boy, can't you tell these are scrim partners watching the way this early game goes through, right? It's the early ward to try and seek out the buff invade and the counter buff invade with the teleport back to solo on top of it. I love it. This is going to come out, though, it feels like, in favor of Space Station with the way this trade is. They're going to come down and grab their own red, and BaRRaCCuDDa already has the enemy red and a bit of lane pressure.
Well, this makes sense because Aquarius, the odds of him getting bullied out of lane against a Sobek are so low. That would be the my initial reaction is, okay, well, Aquarius expended the most in that engagement. He used a big relic, a teleport relic that takes a long time to come back off cooldown, still 2 minutes and plus. But it's against Sobek and Nemesis, like in the next 2.5 minutes, Are they really going to be able to put enough pressure onto Aquarius to force him back to base? It's unlikely. So that's why I think this is the perfect opportunity to pull a strategy like this, because the one major weakness of it is unlikely to be exploited.
No, you're right. That's the only real punishment that's available. They have to commit, a little bit of the vision early on to make that happen. As you said, the teleport too. But aside from that, I mean, it seems very safe for the side of Spacestation Gaming. Baskin has cleared, and now he's heading back towards the jungle. Really only back camp for him to take, and it looks like that is going to be the pathing that he goes for. Then he'll come right back to the mid lane. Already doing a good job trying to get a little bit ahead of Venenu on this Poseidon.
But Venenu and Scream split those back left Harpies, whereas Andy and Baskin solo a couple of Harpies themselves, so that's going to put Andy and Baskin ahead.
Early gank could be potentially happening. Venenu gets hit by the Cobra's Kiss, puts in the damage because of the Madness effect, and the Unstable Vortex Portal combo brings Scream very low here in the mid lane, already forced to retreat. That could really throw off his jungle timing.
This is going to be a speed buff invade because of it. I don't know that he's going to be able to back in time, but Baskin's not here to support, so Venenu going to cut off the option for andinster, and look at the rotation in from PolarBearMike to also support on that speed buff if necessary. But Andy looking for the kill. He took a tower shot there.
Not going to get caught out by the Whirlpool until Vortex doesn't hit PolarBearMike either. Wow, they're walking on tight ropes are these two teams right now, just barely managing to avoid potentially getting buffs stolen or early kills. Already it's clear that aggression is going to be the play from these teams.
But this is what I love to see from andinster. Sometimes he falls into the habits of being a little bit too reactive. He's just trying to hyper farm and then pick out on enemies' mistakes, and that's how he made his hay. Season 1 was just punishing you for any small mistake you would make, but since Season 1, players are just better than they used to be. Less mistakes are made, so he's had to adjust his own playstyle in the jungle to make sure that he's able to be the aggressor at times.
Andy was low. I saw Scream here in the jungle, Ryan. I thought maybe there's a chance he might try and come down and catch him at his own speed, but instead Scream kind of comes back up. I think he didn't have enough information to know that could potentially have been a good play. Instead, andinster grabs his own speed. He's back, and really no problems at all. Scream instead is going to settle for these mid Harpies on the left-hand side.
Now both speed buffs are kind of staggered, not on that same exact respawn timer, and that can favor Spacestation here because they've had the pressure in the mid lane thus far. So Spacestation again forces out Scream like what happened before. Andy will have an opportunity to invade on that speed buff without a lot of worry of his getting stolen away in response.
Trouble for PolarBearMike and PandaCat as andinster rotates in, forced to use Deathbane defensively as PandaCat stands his ground, puts a couple of autos into him, and instead of andinster coming over and maybe finding a gank in the 2v2, PandaCat and PolarBearMike are going to be just fine.
But this is not too bad for Andy. I mean, he doesn't give up too much by being on this left-hand side right now. The only thing that was up on the right is the XP camp, and Baskin was able to strip that away as soon as it came up off of respawn. So now maybe trying to loop here. Andy's going to have the blink in about 5 seconds, but he already has that ultimate available. PandaCat gets ulted by BaRRaCCuDDa to slow him down. Aegis is there as well, and Andy just waiting for the final moments. No, he misses the Cobra's Kiss.
Juked out by PandaCat. The taunt into the shield crash was a ton of damage on andinster, who's low. Scream not going to be able to follow up on this, so even though Andy is in kill threshold, there's no one here to actually finish it off, and instead he'll have a chance to back. Jeff and Baskin, though, coming over to try and get the red buff. Venenu is here to look for the defense, but it's been dropped to the ground, and PolarBearMike's ready to pull him into the Kraken. Gets the hit, though. Baskin's used through space and time to get away.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about, where Jeff can use that Draconic Corruption to get out of that Kraken and use the immunity frames that the transformation provides you. Looks like Spacestation successfully took that red buff as well, considering Venenu hasn't gone over to pick it up quite yet and doesn't seem like he wants to. So successful invade does cost them 2 ultimates in exchange for just 1, and it's out of purification beads on Baskin. So good response from eUnited. Don't get the buff, but get some sort of return instead.
Yeah, don't let them come in and grab that invade for free. And Venenu is going to need to continue trying to put the pressure on. Look at the strat he's going. He's got the cooldown boots, and I got to imagine this is the Shaman's Ring that he's trying to build into here next, Ryan. It's something we've seen a little bit more of now.
But usually it doesn't come second item. It's instead going to be a Spear of the Magus next, maybe a Gem of Isolation, and then the Shaman's Ring after that. I've been a huge proponent of this item for a long, long time. I think it's criminally underpurchased. It just provides so much. It's not that expensive. 100 power, 10% movement speed by itself is really good. Then you add in one of the best passives in the game. It's crazy this item took so long to be bought frequently.
And I love it on Poseidon, who already has kind of movement speed as one of the things he does pretty well. Even the tier 1 gives, what is it, I think 3%, a little bit of movement speed you get from that. So he's going to be getting around just a little bit faster than what you might expect. And that's just one of the things Poseidon already does with the buff off his 2, able to get in there faster and get off those Krakens.
And then you factor in the synergy between the passive and the rest of Poseidon's kit, because dots are usually what you want from Shaman's Ring, and Poseidon has plenty of those.
Scream does get hammered into the unstable vortex, forced to drop the ultimate onto Andy, but in return, he drops his own first blood, though. Gonna go to PolarBearMike off the Kraken from Venenu. eUnited 1-0, and they get out of there scot-free.
I think Andy might have misclicked the ambush there. No reason to use that escape in that situation. Good response, though, by Venenu, understanding that as soon as Andy gets that last breath, he's vulnerable.
Now Baskin's taunted back in. Venenu's here, but no Kraken available. Heavenly Banner gonna force him back, but Baskin goes through the wall. Unstable vortex. Venenu is gonna be sitting on a respawn timer. PolarBearMike is here to try and chase him out, but no way. BaRRaCCuDDa and JeffHindla bodyguard say no.
Cannot believe that killed Venenu there, and I'm sure he feels the exact same way. Use the beads as well to try and stay up. Just, I don't know what, maybe a panic beads in that situation. Not sure if Through Space and Time clipped him or if that was all Unstable Vortex damage.
I think it was Unstable Vortex, yeah.
Pen boots, man. I know it's tempting to go for cooldown boots on Janus, but I've always been a big proponent of the pen boots. It's just so much guaranteed damage if you can hit that middle of that Unstable Vortex.
Andinster does get caught by the tail end of that taunt. Pulls him back into some damage from Scream. Shield Crash doing a fair amount in its own right, and Andinster at about half health. That's enough for Scream to start coming down into the jungle, but with Andy here, he's not going to be able to go for it. In fact, got to be careful. Aquarius is on the rotation too, but Scream should be okay, and Andy will grab this speed, no problem.
It was really Aquarius' threat of rotation that dissuades Scream in that situation. Benji can't really tie him up very easily with this Sobek selection.
Has the ultimate available. I think they might be looking for potential gank here, paired with the Defender of Olympus. Using the ultimate to avoid getting plucked back in, but not going to save his life. Scream finds the last hit necessary, and Aquarius going to have to sit out.
And that's how you play around a lower pressure lane in solo. You bait the enemy solo laner up the lane a little bit further than they would like. Really well-timed boulder from Aquarius to give himself CC immunity. No other way to immune that pluck, but still doesn't end up mattering. Well-timed gank from eUnited.
And look at the pressure that BaRRaCCuDDa has on PandaCat in the dual lane, actually zoning him away from the wave. Level 7 for PandaCat up against BaRRaCCuDDa, who's level 9. That's the same level as JeffHindla is PandaCat right now. He's struggling a bit.
The red buff invade has really paid off because he hasn't been able to get that farm at all. And even in the situation where eUnited is able to secure their own buff, PandaCat can't be there in order to farm it up because he's pushed so far under tower by this point.
And this is even when you consider Jingwei's passive. I mean that even if you get punished in lane, it's usually not as bad. You can get back harpies pretty regularly, get back to lane faster. That has not been quite enough to even things out for PandaCat here in this matchup with BaRRaCCuDDa, who's just looked great this lane, hasn't he? Just and on this Hachiman in particular. It
has been a revitalization for BaRRaCCuDDa for sure, and I'm sure all the Spacestation fans and BaRRa fans out there are excited to see that. And we all knew it was just a matter of time, but excited to see him be able to do it here at LAN.
Baskin actually has the blink come in. The Whirlpool's enough to keep him crippled, but Through Space and Time does not find the mark. Instead, that CC immunity going to allow Baskin to reposition. So they get the ultimate down from Baskin, really without any other commitment aside from just the blink from PBM.
Blink Athena, not something you see a whole lot of because she has a dash to get in there and try and find that taunt, but so much more telegraphed, takes so much longer. Players at this level will be able to use CC immunity in order to get away. I mean, that's a perfect example of why dash taunt usually isn't good enough. It's much slower than the blink taunt, and even with the faster option, Baskin still is able to use his ultimate defensively in reaction.
Checking back in with Baskin, though. You talked about how pin boots really are a good option on Janus, especially if you're going to go, as it looks like he is, into that Chronos pendant. It's a ton of cooldown already, right? So why not get that little bit extra pen and power off those pen boots?
Exactly, and now you're sitting at 30% CDR if you're Baskin, plus the Chronos pendant passive, which basically makes it feel like you're at 40% CDR, sometimes even better than that.
Aquarius has made the rotation to mid lane. He is able to find the pull, and the push on the screen brings him down to half health with a couple of in-hands. No one's around to follow up. The plan is to go on to Venenu instead, who has very low mana. This is going to force Defender of Olympus to come out. No way for Andy to go in, but that's 2 pushes that they've made. Now Spacestation have control here around the red buff, and the invade attempt is on.
Well, Venenu had to back off that pressure from andinster, so no Kraken here. Scream going to get hit by that last breath. Has the beads, but BaRRa is right there with the mounted archery. andinster still alive somehow. Spacestation able to find 2 kills and escape nice and healthy.
So andinster is going to have to back, but yet again, Spacestation have control around the Gold Fury pit. They're not going to be comfortable enough to go for that as Benji lands the pluck right back into the whirlpool, but that's a level 12 Hercules. It's not going to be that easy to take him down. Yet again, another strong play in the jungle, and andinster surviving. How big is that?
Man, it's huge because it's more about the fact that he's a little bit behind right now. He's down 2 levels. The Scream has been splitting a little bit more than Scream has been looking for his own camps a little bit slower. And so if he would have fallen there, that's time off the map that he doesn't get to farm. Instead, now he's going to be able to help impact this Gold Fury.
Gold Fury has been pulled. Venenu has the Kraken available, but Gold Fury, they're not even going to make it there in time. The first objective of the game going the way of Spacestation. They're going to have for themselves about a 1,300 gold lead, 1,400 experience as well. What a game of inches between these two NA Titans.
Well, both junglers passing through the jungle. Scream was trying to catch andinster sleeping on a speed buff respawn, but Andy right there, as any good jungler would be. I like that call from eUnited to just give up that Gold Fury, though. Both Scream and Venenu had their beads down. I know Ven has Crack It Up, but that's kind of a bait in that situation because Spacestation will just leash the objective as soon as he shows up and kill him for trying to get in there and steal it away. It sucks to lose Gold Fury. I get it, but it sucks more whenever you lose a couple members and the Gold Fury on top of that.
Now, Ryan, what has Spacestation's plan been all LAN? It's been this red buff invade, right?
Yep.
There's no way that eUnited do not know that that's the call, and they have not yet had an answer to it. Spacestation have gotten control of this duo jungle side of the map. Where's that control coming from?
Mid lane, it's Baskin. He's got such a lead right now over Venenu. Is just has a more impactful build at this point in the game. CDR and throwing out unstable vortexes, those are going to be hitting really hard. Venenu at this point in the game, Poseidon, I always preach that he's a control mage in the mid to late. This is still where he needs to be dealing damage majority of the time with the Kraken, but it just hasn't been there.
PandaCat going to take the box with BaRRaCCuDDa. I think he's instantly regretting it. Mounted Archery does force out the Aegis, so they get the damage, and Kraken going to be down from Venenu, and JeffHindla going to shrug that one off with the Dragonic Corruption. Scream does get the Defender of Olympus here, so the rest of eUnited are ready to fight, but they have already lost a lot of key cooldowns.
Aquarius makes the rotation in as well, but everyone backing up already. Well-timed Aegis from PandaCat. BaRRa thought that was going to land and tried to burst Panda before he was ready to use that Aegis, but had it up and available. Still a win overall for Spacestation to chase that relic out, but Baskin had to use the Aegis in response to Venenu's Kraken, which also forced andinster back. So eUnited with a stronger defense that time, and that time it was 4 or 5 members basically right there on top of the red buff.
Now, the two threads I'm following here, Ryan, yes, BaRRaCCuDDa and Baskin are out in front, but Benji and Scream are doing really well for themselves so far on the Sobek and the Nemesis. How well are those two, Benji and Scream, going to be able to respond to Baskin and BaRRaCCuDDa? I feel like that's the question.
It's the great point, but my concern about that is that Benji is going to be able to ignore Baskin for the most part. Janus is not very good at killing tanks because usually against tanks you want sustained DPS, not burst DPS, and Janus only provides burst in the mid lane. BaRRaCCuDDa, though, having a lead is the dude who's going to be able to kill Benji, and for that reason I'd love to see him go for a more tank killing build with his next item. Could be a chin size, could be an executioner. Either one of those I think would fit the bill perfectly. Don't want to see him go into crit. You're not going to be able to match the crits coming out of Jing anyways, but someone's going to have to answer Benji. Baskin can take care of Scream with his own damage. That's not too much of a concern for me. Now, it will be difficult because Scream's going to blink on him and use that Divine Judgment very quickly, but Baskin has the opportunity to win that 1v1, but BaRRa is really the only answer I can see for Benji.
We'll take a look. Benji already recognizes, I think, that's the strength of Spacestation. Midgardian coming in third has the Breastplate of Valor already as well. Physical damage is not going to be easy to put a dent into Benji so far, as already the initiation's on from andinster. They immediately reply with the ultimate and blow him up. andinster going to go right back to base, looking for PBM. Not going to be that easy.
Just a little bit of miscommunication there between andinster and Aquarius. Aquarius is coming around the backside. No one knows that he's there, and so he's got his pick of the litter, but andinster goes in a little bit too early, and we're starting to see that vulnerability that Serqet has, which is during last breath, the target that she's on can't do anything to her, but everyone else around her can very, very easily. And Scream, before andinster even hits the ground, hit the ult, the slice and dice, and an auto attack, and andinster was basically dead.
Well, we just talked about the lead for Space Station helping out BaRRaCCuDDa versus PandaCat just now at Tier 1. Well, over here in the jungle, Screammmmm up against andinster. That's the fight that's happening, and the lead a little bit coming in favor of eUnited. They've evened up the kill count, but they're still behind in gold by about that same margin, right around 1,400 or so, and about the same for experience as well at about 1,700. They've managed to plateau a bit this start for Space Station, and now they can kind of hold on and try and get back into the game.
Well, that's why this next Gold Fury is going to be really, really critical for both sides, because it has the lead has plateaued a little bit. And even though 1,500 gold isn't a massive lead by any stretch, there's an opportunity to use it to get extra ward vision, to make sure that Space Station, with that gold lead that they've earned for themselves, can make sure that they've got the majority of the vision on the left-hand side. And it's worked out thus far. Look at that left side. It's basically all blue right now with just a small scattering of a couple of red wards.
Bit of a grouping around PolarBearMike. Got to make sure he's careful. Portal traps him. Cobra's Kiss is already used, but last breath to follow up. Kraken deletes andinster yet again through space and time. Clips Venenu, but the fight is already over. eUnited continue to punish the Serqet.
Andy keeps trying to ult PBM, and Venenu and Scream are loving it. Not only because PBM's getting ulted and potentially in trouble, but because they get to just gobble up andinster every single time. Baskin takes a huge chunk of damage from Scream, who cuts off his entrance nicely, and now it's eUnited on the gold.
Aquarius, though, is rotating on the backside. Boulder is used. The jump in comes out from JeffHindla as well, but eUnited secure the Gold Fury. Can they make it out with their lives? Well, certainly not. Venenu. BaRRaCCuDDa takes him down with the horse. JeffHindla gonna try and help lock down Scream on the left-hand side, where Aquarius and BaRRaCCuDDa are putting in all the damage. If they can get out, it's still worth, but Scream might be in trouble, and he is. JeffHindla finishes that one off.
Man, great play from Aquarius, though, to bring him back in. Benji trying to keep PBM alive, and he will do so. But Barrett's cleanup there is absolutely critical. He comes in at the back end of that team fight, and he's healthy, and Scream is healthy. And that's the big difference, is who's going to make the bigger impact. Is Baskin needs to be careful here, because Jing is on the way with that rapid reincarnation, but still able to get out of there. It's Janus style still, is able to get out very, very safely. But going back to the beginning of that team fight, andinster cannot be ulting anyone besides Venenu or Scream if either of those are around. He's just dying before he can get his beads off, before he can ever hope to escape. It's just not going to work out. He's got to find instances where there's only one of those members and then ult one of those guys, because otherwise he's dead every time.
Well, Ryan, I was going to ask you, who was that fight in favor of? Space Station kind of answered it, though, with everything they took on the backside. Baskin clears out the jungle, as you acknowledged, as well as the Pyromancer goes the way of Space Station, too. So, yes, eUnited got some gold, but they lose 2 kills. They lose their jungle. They lose the Pyromancer. Space Station answer heavily.
And it's more about sticking around the map and getting more and more farm. I mean, Baskin stripping away a buff, an XP camp, a couple waves, Pyromancer. That just ups his lead now 3 levels over Venenu in the jungle, and BaRRaCCuDDa is able to stick around and keep farming as well, whereas PandaCat has to go and try and defend a speed buff that Baskin had already stolen. BaRRa is going to be a critical member here for Space Station and for eUnited to watch out for, because if andinster keeps trying to go on these tanks, it's going to continue to be a 4v5 in eUnited's favor. But BaRRaCCuDDa did enough work in the last fight, as well as Aquarius with that that late rotation, to make it so that Space Station still had a shot in that engagement.
Yeah, that boulder around the backside was huge to set up for the mounted archery for BaRRaCCuDDa to find the big damage and help turn that fight around eUnited's favor, man. If eUnited can make it out of that fight just a little bit cleaner, how different is the complexion of this game? Then Space Station aren't stripping away the jungle from eUnited on the back end and pushing themselves. They're actually further in the lead than they were before eUnited got the Gold Fury. That really turned things around.
And I love what Space Station's doing, because I've just talked so much about it. BaRRaCCuDDa's the dude. He's the guy you got to play around. Space Station is just grouping on the left side of the map. This is where they want to fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right now. Now, they do need to be careful for a little bit longer, because BaRRa doesn't have relics for about 20 seconds. But as soon as he gets those up, I'd love to see Space Station continue to group around him.
Scream goes in, trying to put damage on the Baskin, but takes a good bit of poke on his own. Venenu is going to have to back. He's half health. Benji caught out potentially. Has the pluck available, so he is going to be the dash away. But Aquarius, yet again, is looking to come in on the backside of the fight, as is andinster. Venenu is under duress in the mid lane, while on the right-hand side, Aquarius keeps Benji away. They're forced to retreat. Tier 1 tower goes down, and now Andy is forced to ambush away.
Ooh, through space and time was hunting PandaCat, but he got up into the airstrike. BaRRa playing very aggressively in the enemy jungle, forces PandaCat back. But this is the BaRRa swagger, right?
Isn't
like
it? Yeah.
he just feels like he's playing a different game now than he was at the beginning of this split. And it's this comfort level at LAN, it's being around your teammates, and honestly, it's just having a couple of good games that gives you the confidence to make plays like he has made so far.
Well, I mean, you saw him tweet the other day, like, it feels good to hear people tweeting nice stuff about me again, or something close to that.
Right.
And, you know, I'm sure some of it's just a little bit of that BaRRa joke, right? But I gotta think, you know, that like having them, the whole mystique, the whole BaRRa thing being back, I gotta think that impacts some in the game, and we're seeing it. My man's playing aggressive, getting off big damage in team fights. 1-0-4, a huge part of why Spacestation are looking so good in game 1.
And Baskin as well, 2-0-1, level 19, and you saw the commit there from eUnited trying to take him out of that fight early on, but that was all just a bait to try and bait eUnited deeper down the lane because BaRRa was lurking around that corner, but it's all centered around these two right now. Aquarius has got to set them up. JeffHindla's got to peel for them, try and initiate with a nice hammer here and there, but really it just comes down to how well can Baskin and BaRRa continue to deal their damage.
Actually, the engage is on from andinster on a Venenu, who's already low. He has to Kraken on top of himself to create some space, and he's already out of the fight. Scream's gonna wrap it on the backside, looking for Baskin. Those in-hands are chunking. JeffHindla transforms. He's not able to help him. Nearly in time. Baskin, the first casualty of this fight, and now Spacestation to consider retreating.
And now Baskin learning the lesson that every Janus player learns over and over and over again, that as good as an offensive portal looks, you got to be really sure there's no way you can get punished for it. There, Scream knows the portal cooldown is down as it's through space and time, and gates himself an easy kill in that mid lane.
5v4 around the Gold Fury for eUnited. They deward now. They're ready to start pulling this Gold Fury. And I think the call from Spacestation is just to give this one up. Without Baskin, they can't fight it. eUnited grab that and get the gold lead much, much closer to even. They have lost some map control already, Tier 1 in mid and Tier 1 in duo, but gold-wise, things are much closer.
Love the idea, though, from Spacestation to try and catch Venenu out while his beads were still down. Andy holds him in place. Baskin hits the through space and time. Problem is, he'd already used the Soul Reaver and the Soul Gem proc, so it didn't deal as much damage.
Fire Giant's being bursted, but BaRRaCCuDDa's here at the Mountain Archery. eUnited secure the objective, but now can they cleanly get away? PandaCat uses Airstrike. Benji uses the pluck through space and time. Isn't going to clip anyone, and Aquarius is still in the chase, but that's it. eUnited, off that one fight in mid, get Gold Fury and the Fire Giant.
Man, that Spacestation just dropping the ball a little bit there, Finch. They've got to respect that ability from eUnited to burn down Fire Giant. Aquarius knew it, but BaRRaCCuDDa was a little bit late to it. The rest of the team just wasn't really there.
Oh, Benji could be in trouble, brought down to half health. PandaCat's here, but what can he do? PolarBearMike comes in as well, so they cannot fully commit onto the Sobek. In fact, a lot of them are getting a little bit low and forced to retreat. Venenu is here, has the Kraken available again, and if PolarBearMike can find a taunt, they certainly can put a dent in Spacestation. They recognize, and they forced to give up this Tier 2 push.
Brutal now for Spacestation, because where do you try to defend? The game is completely even in gold and experience, but now the enemy team has a Fire Giant. So what is worth defending? Where do you feel like you can actually play defense? Certainly Tier 1 should be off the table. Giving up 500 gold across an enemy team is really not that big of a deal. I do think I want to see Spacestation try and make a play around a Tier 2, however. I don't want to see them
give up everything.
Everything, right. Now, one Tier 2, sure. If eUnited wants to shove down this right side, totally fine by me. If I'm on Spacestation, you earned it with the Fire Giant. But mid Tier 2, left Tier 2, I want to see Spacestation take a defense on at least one of those.
But what a play from eUnited. I mean, could you want more from this game 1 between these two teams? Spacestation, it felt like they had control all along. eUnited punish Baskin in mid. Venenu does a good job staying alive, and Screen wraps around the bottom and finds the kill. They get Gold Fury, Fire Giant, and now they're the ones pushing into Tier 2s, collecting some more global gold and giving themselves a lead. Way to turn this one around. What a game.
Baskin dewarding in the jungle because he wants to come in through and dissect this team fight with through space and time. It's all about his engage.
The call has gone in. PolarBearMike actually gets pulled back in. Benji is not able to find the pluck, but that initiation works either way. Very low on the backside is Venenu. He's forced to retreat. Baskin is looking for a little bit of damage onto PolarBearMike, who is brought low, and Aquarius is going to continue to push him back into the tower. Aquarius finds PolarBearMike through space and time. Might not hit for much damage, but a huge defense from Spacestation on the Tier 2 tower, and they push eUnited back.
Man, I love that idea from Spacestation, but Baskin is so patient and then uses through space and time at just a moment too early. If he slides to the left a little bit there and then just shoots through space and time up that jungle wall, where does eUnited run? There's no way you outrun through space and time in that situation. Look, Spacestation's gonna get a couple towers here. They get to remain, wait out the remainder of that Fire Giant. It's a great defense. But if Baskin either uses it earlier to try and execute someone and get a little bit more off of it, or uses it to chase in that situation, it could have been even better for Space Station.
And both those engages for eUnited didn't quite hit the mark underneath the tier 2 tower. I think that might be the slightly bigger story. The pluck doesn't land from Benji. He just kind of makes it to the back line, and they don't really get it from PolarBearMike either. So instead, Space Station are kind of free to rotate just a little bit around inside the fight, find the damage they want. And how big is it that Aquarius just stands tall at the front of that tower line and is able to chase down PolarBearMike?
Look, I don't think a lot of teams are second-picking Hercules right now. I haven't seen that in a lot of the high-level ranked games or anything like that, but when your name's Aquarius or Benji or dudes like FidoK, they can make this god look incredible, and Baskin has got to be careful here because PBM is right behind him. That'll get the beads there off the blink. Yeah, that's just too aggressive there from Baskin. Can't position that close.
Important relic's going to be on cooldown for Baskin now. He does still have Aegis and through space and time for CC immunity, but he'll be a little bit easier to take down. Yet again, Space Station posturing around the tier 2. They go in for the taunt. Immediate boulder comes out from Aquarius, and JeffHindla doesn't get pulled in either. In fact, it's PolarBearMike, who again is underneath the tower, and he's down. Baskin gets credit for that one with the portal through space and time. Is going to set up for Aquarius to come through on the backside. Kraken to force him back, but nobody gets hit. This fight has Space Station all over it.
Oh, Scream stunned out. Still has the purification beads. Aquarius trying to find him there with the driving strike, but Scream's able to blink up and over that wall. That's what I was looking for from the through space and time, though, in the last fight. Dissect the engagement, try and cut off any potential escape routes. Well played that time.
And they're not even going to let Scream back. They're continuing to chase him out, stagger the defense now from eUnited and the retreat. That's what's going to create time for Space Station to look around the map to try and get a little bit more. Gold Fury, these jungle camps, if they want them, it all comes from the chase they do on the back end of that team fight. But wow, those 2 tower defenses from Space Station, you think that you go get Gold Fury and Fire Giant, you're going to get the tier 2 towers for free? Not in this set.
And that's an adjustment from Space Station. I talked about it a lot yesterday in their set against Dignitas with Hindu Man, but you think back to this roster, not under the Space Station tag, against under the Luminosity tag. Last year against Energy at Worlds, Energy gets a close Fire Giant, and then this roster gives up every single tower. And all of a sudden, instead of being down 1,000 against a Fire Giant team where it's difficult, but you could fight into it, they were down 9,000 with no Fire Giant against them, and that's a much harder hill to climb. They've clearly learned from those sorts of experiences, and I love the aggressiveness on these towers. Neither of the tier 2 towers that eUnited wanted, they got.
Grouping around the Fire Giant now, Ryan. No beads available for Baskin for another 40 seconds, but the same story could be said for Scream and Venenu another 70 seconds before they'll have their beads available. That is not deterring eUnited, though, who are going in aggressively. Portal deters PolarBearMike, but they don't find it.
I think BaRRa put him in combat right before the blink came off. There's a taunt onto Aquarius, not the target you necessarily want. He gets plucked, but really not worried about the amount of damage, and Benji realizes that he needs to be worried and goes lurking under the waters. But they need to be careful here at eUnited because, again, Baskin's through space and time could get Space Station behind him.
Keep an eye on Scream, who's going to wrap it on the backside. Taunt comes out from PolarBearMike, and the target is going to be andinster. They're having a one-on-one jungle fight while PolarBearMike is again being shredded by the damage from BaRRaCCuDDa. PolarBearMike's down. Kraken into the Aegis. Baskin will be A-OK. Now Venenu is getting hunted by andinster. Unstable. Vortex shuts him down. 2 kills for Space Station Gaming. They take the tier 2, and they continue to push in right.
Man, everyone from Space Station was doing something different in that team fight, but it all came together beautifully. That is the orchestra of a team fight right there. Andy handles Scream on the left-hand side, takes him out of the fight, doesn't kill him, but takes him out of the fight instantly. Baskin uses through space and time, not only for the CC immunity to make sure he doesn't get taunted in by PBM, but he gives Aquarius a window to the backside of the team fight. That allows Aquarius to handle PandaCat, which isolates Ven and PBM, which BaRRaCCuDDa and JeffHindla take advantage of. What a team fight from Space Station. That was incredible.
That was sick. I mean, and everyone took plays where they had to win essentially their matchups. The 1v1 or the 2v2, there wasn't going to be backup. There wasn't going to be support. You had to win your assignment. It was like it was like man coverage or something, right? It was like you got to make sure you win it.
It's more of an FPS term and shooters and whatnot, but you have to win your ones. You put yourself in the right position, you cover the map, and then you just have to win your one-on-ones. And that's exactly what Space Station did. You don't see it quite as much in MOBAs, but that is the textbook definition of, hey, I play X role. What do I do in a team fight? You could watch that team fight and have it be every role from Space Station learning what to do in any given situation. Beautiful.
Now, I got to ask you, though, PolarBearMike has been getting shredded by BaRRaCCuDDa in these fights. I don't know if that's just BaRRaCCuDDa being way ahead, but PolarBearMike's build, I don't know if this is the same builds that we normally seen. It's not what we're seeing from JeffHindla with the sovereignties, with the heart words over on that side. Is this build going to get it done from PBM?
PBM has been a long time defender of the non-aura style of builds. He prefers to help the team through other ways by getting extra CDR, for getting the Pythags piece and the Shogun's Kasaris. That's a style of support that he likes to play. But when he's on the defensive, that can hurt him at times. And I think you're seeing a display of that here. Sovereignty or something like that. He's isolated a lot of the time, so maybe not
a little more health.
Maybe a little bit more health could have helped. A mid-guardian mail even against BaRRaCCuDDa, but looks like he's more worried about the slows coming out. Could be a winged blade next for some cheap HP.
Does also have the curse on because he goes in for the blink taunt into the ultimate. That's gonna take Aquarius out immediately. Scream gets the last hit necessary in Space Station already in a 4v5. That's 2 ultimates though that are gonna be on cooldown from Nemesis and Poseidon, but I think they're A-okay. Space Station gotta leave.
Yeah, that's totally fine, and that's something that eUnited wasn't really doing before, but they have to be careful here. There's a perfect corridor.
Oh no. This looks like a problem. Third base in time! Deletes PandaCat! Are you kidding me? He's already out of the fight. PolarBearMike is second. Double kill for Baskin. PolarBearMike's already out of here. What was a 5v4 a minute ago is a 4v3. Space Station Gaming have a chance to take game 1. They lock down Benji as well. He managed to pluck right on out of there, but Scream is next up on the talking block. Baskin makes it out of there, and Phoenix is under siege.
This left side Phoenix is gone. Venenu very low. Aegis buys him a moment, but BaRRa's going to be able to finish him off. Left side Phoenix falls, but now BaRRa's in a lot of trouble. Scream will answer back. So Space Station don't get to end the game right here. But I'd like to submit an official petition to rename the left side back harpies Baskin Alley, because he seems to make insane plays there all the time. I'm thinking of last year against Space Station, that old roster where he finds that 3-4-man Morrigan stun, wins Luminosity the game right there, places a ward and just waits. And not a lot of teams will do something like that, but it's just the risk reward there isn't particularly high for Space Station, but the reward is really, really great. They get the left side Phoenix, had a chance to end the game if BaRRa is able to stay up in that situation. Incredible.
Boy, I gotta tell you, man, that Soul Reaver Soul Gem proc, man, that said hello,
pretty
didn't
good,
it?
yeah?
Didn't it? I mean, wow, what a big fight from Space Station. That could have potentially been a nightmare for them. They lose Aquarius very early on with that clean pick from eUnited, but they wait around the corner. They're so patient, and eUnited walk right into it. They think they can just step up into the jungle, maybe try and get some vision down, get some camps that are up. Space Station punish. Again, it's been these calls that are not quite what you expect, I think, from both teams that have been perfect so far in this game, and that's why it's so back and forth.
Space Station just looks comfortable. Space Station just looks very comfortable on land. Now, andinster had some struggles in the earlier game, but he's doing his job very well in the mid to late game team fights, which is honestly much harder on a god like Serqet than the early game anyways. So Andy's had some struggles earlier on, but Baskin, BaRRa, Jeff, Aquarius, they all look right at home here on land, and it really shows in their gameplay.
Now it's time to regroup, though, around this Fire Giant pit. Another 35 seconds or so before we're going to be seeing that Fire Giant back up again. eUnited have all 5 members with that Phoenix down in left lane. Can they come out and try and defend this? Can they fight on it, or do they have to wait and defend on Phoenixes?
I don't mind the idea of trying to maybe step up a little bit, though the more I think about it, I think I'd rather see eUnited just sit in base, because it's a lot harder to get sniped underneath your Phoenix than it is in the jungle, or to have your escape path cut off towards your fountain instead of right underneath your Phoenix. So I think that giving up this Fire Giant's probably the right call. Janus is just so good in these jungle fights, and he's still pretty good in the Phoenix sieges as well, but doesn't have that same level of potency.
And earlier on in the game, I asked you about the 2 different leads, right? Benji and Scream compared to Baskin and BaRRaCCuDDa. Well, I think that question has been answered, has it not? I mean, BaRRaCCuDDa and Baskin have been looking so much better in these team fights. You can't stand in front of BaRRaCCuDDa, even if you're PolarBearMike, even if you're Benji. And apparently, you can't even be in your own jungle if Through Space and Time is up from Baskin, or you can say goodbye to your entire health bar.
And that's the roll of the dice that you do every time you give up Janus. And it's crazy to think that he went 9th pick in this game. I don't think he'll be any pick next game.
No.
I'll feel pretty comfortable in saying that eUnited or Space Station, really, whoever is in that 2nd pick slot is almost certainly going to ban this.
The grouping from eUnited is in solo, Phoenix right now, but it looks like the push from Space Station is happening in mid. They're going to have to rotate if they want to make sure they're here in time. Counter warding, going to make it easier for them to start grouping up and defend. Who on eUnited, though, for you is going to be the focal point for this defense for them when Space Station come barreling down towards those Phoenixes?
I'm totally fine with eUnited doing the Benji pluck into Nemalt Kraken combo onto Aquarius again. And problem is Aquarius is Magi's now, so it won't be quite as easy. So, but that level of investment wasn't a problem for me. It's just that they got womboed on the backside once they had already started that engagement off well.
Solo Phoenix is indeed going to be the call. United have to regroup and defend there. Aquarius is keeping the minions pushed up in mid, and Benji is there to try and force him back. Looks like Aquarius is going to come back and join the fray. Space Station waiting on their minion wave, and they'll push in.
Now left side Phoenix respawns, but that's a massive fire wave coming down the left. So as you called, they're going to go in now while that wave is putting pressure on the Phoenix.
JeffHindla finds the hammer onto PandaCat. That's more to force him back. Benji eats the proc from Baskin, but Scream drops the ultimate on him, trying to force the Janus away. Benji's incredibly low and lurking in the waters. I think the collapse is on. Through space and time comes to the fight. One more time, PolarBearMike and Scream are forced to retreat. Benji's already down. Things on the right-hand side being taken by Benji, or rather by BaRRaCCuDDa, while Baskin and andinster continue to push. PandaCat gets pulled back in. Aegis has to be used, but PolarBearMike does find the taunt. But who's left to follow back up on it? Fire minions are pumping into the Titan. Phoenix on the right-hand side's down. Now they're coming for mid-Phoenix as well.
And the United's too worried about the fire wave, and they need to be, so they can't defend this mid-Phoenix. So now Space Station has the base broken wide open.
And now they have a chance to come in and try and make the push. Space Station versus eUnited. Game 1 on the line. Potentially a trip home on the line as the Titan is crumbling before the might of Space Station. They take Game 1 versus eUnited, and they look damn good doing it.
Man, Baskin and BaRRa, what a combo these two. You saw it starting to form towards the beginning of the spring split, but that was what was promised for the Space Station roster. Just two dudes. You can't kill one. The other's going to kill you. You can't kill either one. You're going to lose the game instantly, and that's exactly what happened there to eUnited.
And this is what the elevator pitch looks like for Space Station Gaming, right? The elevator pitch looks like, hey, we can have andinster get farmed all early game, but then you still have to worry about Baskin BaRRaCCuDDa. That's the elevator pitch for this team, and it comes to fruition here. I mean, what do you do about a team like this?
I don't know. I mean, that went as well as you could possibly hope for in the early game, basically against andinster specifically. You're totally right. eUnited played around that Serqet very, very well, but the play around the rest of the roster, I mean, the Hachiman didn't really see any pressure. The Jing pick early on is that meant to survive more than anything else, and PandaCat did that, but was behind, and the constant red buff invades. Jingwei is not very good at defending that. I guarantee eUnited picks something that can fight on their red better in Game 2. They've got to know that that's where that whole game fell apart. It gave Baskin the lead, it gave BaRRa the lead, and those were the names we were calling all game long.
It seems pretty clear like that was the strategy, was it? Well, who is your MVP for Game 1? Tons of great choices to pick on Space Station. Would not fault you at all if you go with Baskin on the back of that performance, but everyone looked good. So did BaRRa, didn't he? We'll go ahead and get over to the desk, though, and let them break it down.
Finch and Ryan, thank you very much. Tom and Taco here to break it down. And at the end of the day, this one was, well, a Baskin effect. I'm going to eat my words. Earlier today, I said, look, the Janus I'm not as scared of. When Baskin comes through with the other options, he's a little bit more liable to be dominant. I guess not.
There's a reason why he had no fear picking that Janus into the Poseidon, and that gameplay was phenomenal the whole way through. Baskin just looked fantastic, and I think that a lot of that still needs to be heavily credited towards the entirety of Space Station. They were all doing an excellent job working together. Especially when you're playing a character like Janus. Shoutouts to Baskin, who will be our most valuable player here. This is a character that can do well in its own right, and absolutely did, but the setup was huge. I'm glad that this is going to be one of the very first clips that we are showing to from this MVP play, because this was the main reason why Space Station even managed to break through on that left-hand Phoenix and siege it. Baskin all day long in game number 1 here between Space Station and eUnited. You know, I was watching this game with Envision Eyes and rival coach Alpha Jacqueline. AJ stood up and screamed. It was a one-shot right there. And it's fun because, look, the character and the build, that does the numbers. But being able to lead the target beyond the wall, find the kill, that's the impressive part. The Doublionex aspect, getting the follow-up, good for him. But the shot through the wall, that's always the impressive stuff. Well, I think it's actually pretty interesting that you bring up having stuck here with Alpha Jackal here, because I was actually with the rest of Rival in the main room, you know, the other part, but everybody was just as hyped when we all saw that play come come through. But more importantly, I wasn't a huge fan of this eUnited composition. It was that same core comp that we saw Rival first break out, I think, at the Super Regionals land prior to the last Worlds where they toppled Dignitas. Athena, Poseidon, Nemesis. Those three gods together look great, but eUnited never really felt like they were on the same page with it. You would see Mike going in while the rest of his team is backing off, and I don't think that there was a single moment outside of that left-hand Phoenix siege where they finally found the pick onto Aquarius with that comp that the taunts came through, Whirlpool for the disengage, and then you have the Nemesis ultimate to follow up. Aquarius can't survive through that, but it happened so little that it just wasn't really bang for your buck kind of situation here for eUnited. They just seemed a bit awkward on it.
I think this is where Cardiac got to make his money, right? I mean, we always think of coaches when it comes to picks and bans, but the coach is also who you go to what the hell went wrong, right? The coach is the independent eye that's watching the game from the outside perspective, and that was a fine draft, and it wasn't outside of the comfort zone for eUnited. This is what they do. They give Scream Nemesis, they set up everybody, and Venenu. This is not a foreign concept to eUnited, but I'm with you. There was a communication breakdown. Something was disjointed. Cardiac has to walk in there and goes, what happened? Give me all three versions of the story. Let's find the common thread and fix it, because eUnited's a better team than we saw. That draft was perfectly fine. It was the execution, and I'm confident that Cardiac can fix it.
And there's always the chance that I'm wrong on this, but it quite frankly didn't seem like a composition that they'd been actively practicing because of how off the mark they felt majority of the time throughout Game 1. It just seemed so desynced between each other, and you want that combination to come through one after the next, and that just wasn't the case here.
For the same reason, I think I think it's the opposite. I think that they look so disjointed that as a pro player, you're going to be tossed some weird picks, right? And you can understand how any character works with an Athena. It's a taunt, right? Athena, Poseidon, these guys have been playing forever. It's not, a foreign language. It looked so disjointed that something else was up, because practice or no practice, taunt into a Kraken. This is the Smite Pro League. We're at Masters. These guys can do it.
But that's the thing, though, is that you sometimes can't just whip out any three guys that you want to, because while all these players are incredibly talented to do so, you're up against Spacestation. These aren't your average Joes. They are a team that are going to thoroughly punish you if you're not on the mark, and that just happened to be the case here with eUnited. There were a lot of promising moments for eUnited throughout Game 1, and then they just couldn't deliver 9 times out of 10, and as a result, I mean, you end up dropping Game 1. I'm also sick and tired of seeing Benji on Sobek. For the love of God and everything that is good in this world, get Benji off of the freaking croc.
I'm with you on that. This has been something I've been saying since homing FA in Season 4. When you have a player that's known for being good at something, give them the tools they need to succeed. If I'm a painter, give me a paintbrush, not a hammer. And that's what's happening to Benji over here. This guy is one of the strongest, heavy aggressive players in the solo lane, and you give him a character that doesn't do anything for 6 minutes? Like, what's wrong?
And what also just completely boggles my mind on this even further is that when they played Rival yesterday, the one win that they had was Benji on a warrior. He played Kakolin, and they did fine because he was able to actually do something in his lane and during the laning phase, and so it wasn't just Deathwalker getting to do whatever the hell he wanted. And then Game 2 and 3, you see Benji on the Sobek, and it's like, okay, nice. Thanks for the free lane pressure.
eUnited, I think, are falling into the trap that I've seen a number of teams fall into, and surprisingly enough, historically, it's been the BaRRaCCuDDa teams that fall into this trap, where you follow the meta too hard. Sobek's been crushing it. Sobek has been arguably the best solo laner throughout the spring split, so that's what should work. That's what's good on paper. And I think that these teams, when they come to LAN, you're studying almost harder than the regular season, and you can look at the things that have been successful, and you look at the statistics. But at the end of the day, team identity is important. And yeah, you can be sort of lured in by the siren song of the quote-unquote meta. But at the end of the day, you won with the World Championship with Kakulin. Keep doing stuff like that.
And also, to add even more onto it, you can look shaky between the Athena, Poseidon, and Nemesis, and that honestly wouldn't have mattered as much if Benji was on a warrior, I think. I don't see Spacestation having as much free pressure on the solo side of the map because it felt as though eUnited thought that they had to gank Aquarius more often because they didn't want to allow him to just steamroll over in that lane, and it didn't even end up amounting to anything. Benji built pretty much full tank. We saw PolarBearMike actually repping the Void Stone on the Athena support.
Yep.
I wish that would have been a swap between the Athena and the Sobek. I think Benji should have been rocking that Void Stone. And I understand that there is benefits to both sides of the coin, but in this instance, I just think that PBM's build was a little bit too greedy for what eUnited were trying to accomplish. And on top of that, you just didn't have really any follow-up pressure coming through from Benji. He was just kind of there to absorb damage.
Well, hopefully we see Benji on a character that's allowed to be a little bit more aggressive. I think that's really what we're getting at, is that this solo laner is somebody special, and he can absolutely control if that's what he needs to do. And frankly, he does need to do that. He just hasn't been given the tools. So for eUnited, I want to see a switch in the solo lane. I want to see a little bit more power given to this guy. I think you agree with me there. Where else can eUnited kind of change their play?
I think that they need to not ban Uller and ban Athena instead. It felt to me like Athena was a force pick here for eUnited because they didn't want to allow Spacestation to get Serqet and Athena together.
But isn't Uller in the middle lane one of the more devastating combos that
But
Spacestation
you don't need
brings?
that. You know what a double hunter composition is going to be like between these two teams. This, to me, and I even, like, the rival guys all agreed, it's just one of those instances where it feels more like they're getting absorbed into their scrim meta as opposed to what's actually happening here at LAN. I don't